Hi everyone, it's Paul Tchaikovsky, developer advocate at VMware. Recently we released a experimental project called Cloud Foundry for Kubernetes, and that's taking Cloud Foundry and trying to make it work with native Kubernetes concepts driving most of it. It is definitely incomplete, so you're not using this in production, but it is certainly at an interesting spot. I thought I would quickly run through installing it and see how it works. So you can see here, Kubernetes native. It's built on top of our well-known Kubernetes projects, Istio, Envoy, etc. There's an alpha coming, which will actually include the original CF push style build packs. For now, it supports Docker images. So let's go straight to this deploying and have a look at deploying. All right, so we need a couple of tools. We need CAP and YTT, and they are tools that are really designed for deploying applications to Kubernetes. YTT is sort of a templating language, but a little bit stronger, very similar to Kustomize. And then CAP is a wrapper around installing applications on Kubernetes, and we'll see them in action shortly. So pretty straightforward. We have both of those tools. We actually also need, where we look, there's the Bosch CLI, and don't worry, we're not using Bosch to install anything. We're actually using it to generate some passwords and certificates, just so that we don't have to do that manually ourselves. So you'll see me run some Bosch commands in a bit, and don't worry too much about that. So let's go ahead and clone this down and get started. So we have the option of using Bosch or doing things manually. So there's a one-liner. You can see it takes the domain we'll be using there. I have a domain set up with Google Cloud DNS, so I'll be able to use that. Or you could go ahead and do it manually here. We are going to run this. So there's a couple of scripts here, so I guess we could have a quick look at those scripts. Hack generate values. Yeah, so this is fairly straightforward. You can see we have this Bosch interpolate and then a list of variables. This is what Bosch will look at, and it will create variable types based on this, right? So it's going to create a bunch of passwords, and then it's going to create a bunch of certificates. And it's going to dump that into a file called vars file. And then it's going to render those into this, which is a YTT style values file. So again, it's pulling the values out of that vars file. So pretty straightforward. We can go ahead and run that command. Nope, I actually want a domain. We'll use my domain here. And that happened pretty quickly. Let's have a look at this file. So you can see here it's popped in my domain. It's created a bunch of random passwords, and then it's created some certificates and keys, etc. Not much to that. A bunch of certificates and keys, a bunch more passwords. So pretty straightforward still. Let's have a look what our next step is. So we ran that. Run the install script with your CF install values file. All right. So there's the command. So I think this takes a while, so I might go ahead and run this and then we'll go through what it's actually doing. You can see there it's connecting to my Kubernetes cluster, and I'm sure it'll start doing some stuff shortly. So let's have a look at that script. Install cf.sh. So here it is, just grabbing its directories. It's looking for the path to the values file, which I provided in the command. And then it's simply running a cap deploy across the rendered templates. So YTT here is going to render my templates out, and then cap deploy is going to then deploy those. Cap deploy is pretty similar to doing a kubectl apply, but it actually follows and makes sure resources come up successfully as they happen. Now, the other thing is this config.dir. So let's have a look at that, because that is what contains most of the YTT magic that happens. So here we have a bunch of resources, and so these are the various things that are being installed. This values file is all the default values that can be overridden in the values file that we provided. Let's have a look at Docker registry. So this here is grabbing a YTT library, in this case the Docker registry, and then it's rendering that out. So YTT is a little bit confusing to first look at, but basically it's a YAML file with like inlaid programming. So you can see here we have these comment with the @ and I believe that's basically telling YTT there's something to be done or something to be rendered. Meanwhile, you have regular comments, which are now comment with a bang. So let's go back to our install. It is still installing. I would imagine it's going to take a while because there's a fair bit of stuff to install. And while that's happening, let's have a look. We need to create DNS. I only need to create a single DNS entry, which is star dot and the system domain, and then the IP address that I can get running this command here. So I can open up my Google console, add a record, star.cf. This is still installing. I wonder though if we can go ahead and run this command and see if it's already created this ingress gateway. Run this in another prompt, and you can see it has. So we can go ahead and copy that in and get a kickstart, because DNS will take a minute to propagate. Create that. All right, and then we just wait on this finishing. All right, you can see it is now finished. I did pause the recording so that you wouldn't have to wait for ages watching, but you can see from the timestamps that we really didn't take all that long. So now we can go ahead and verify that it is working. We can run, let me have a look at what namespaces we have. I have a lot because this is a pretty busy cluster. I probably should have done this on its own cluster, but that's just how I roll. CF system. Okay. -n get pods. You can see here's the various Cloud Foundry bits up and running. So everything seems to be started. So I'm going to guess we can probably go ahead and run some CF commands and see what happens. All right, CF auth. So I need to do this guy here. CF demo. All right, and then I need to authenticate. I need to authenticate with a CF admin passwords, which I don't know. I do remember seeing it somewhere in a values file. So let's have a look at where did the values end up? Let's have a look at the commands I ran. Oh, /temp CF values. All right. All right, so there's a bunch of stuff. Let's head that. There we go, CF admin password. So I can probably pass that through YQ. CF admin password, is that correct? Yes, that is it. So I can take that and back to here. I can copy this in and then just back to take this YQ command like that. And that works. I am authenticated. Next, we want to enable Docker. And then it says we can CF push. That is great. Create org demo. All right, that's the start. And then CF create space demo, org demo. And then we can target that space and org. That looks a little bit better. And then we should go CF push. And there's our CF push right there. Should be pretty quick because we're not actually compiling any code. And we get a failure, but I think it mentioned in the doc that failure is okay here. We'll return an error, but the app is successfully pushed and is routable via HTTP. So we should be able to curl this. And then that was like that. And I'm using HTTP rather than curl, but curl would also suffice. And that looks correct. I'm getting 200 and it's giving me a JSON payload with a bunch of environment variables, which is exactly what that app should do. So there we go. That is Cloud Foundry deployed to Kubernetes and using Kubernetes based systems. So it's using Istio to create the routing, etc. So I guess that's it. That's all I have to show you right now. Thank you for watching.